Hello, and welcome to Big Sound Small Town. I'm your host, Sandy Carlton. The small towns and communities of Cleveland County, North Carolina have long been a hotbed of music in all its many forms. Several Cleveland County musicians have found commercial success and critical acclaim in the music industry. Yeah, everybody knows that Earl Scruggs, Don Gibson, Patty Loveless, and Alicia Bridges are from Cleveland County. Donald Byrd, too. So this is not a podcast about them. This is a podcast about the musicians who are still here and keep music alive here. This is the stories, and you need to know them and know the people who are making the music. This is not your normal podcast. You just heard a little bit of 1955 by Hayne Coleman. We recorded that in the Earl Scruggs Center, but we did this interview at the Dragonfly Wine Market, and we talked about everything from songs and songwriting to hot air balloons. Give it a listen. Today on Big Sound, Small Town, we're coming to you live from the Dragonfly Wine Market on Warren Street in Shelby, North Carolina. My guest today is singer, songwriter, frontman, and artist Hayne Coleman. All right, I'm here with Hayne Coleman. He's going to tell us a little bit about how he got into the music business to begin with, and maybe where even his love of music started.
All right. Used to doing this.
It's okay. It's a casual atmosphere.
I started playing drums.
How old would you have been then?
I was in elementary school.
Okay.
Took a few lessons, but mostly picked up drums off of 45 records.
The drop needle deal.
Yeah. And everybody our age knows. We all learned off of 45 records,
We did.
I'm assuming.
Yes.
But I'd stay downstairs. They put me downstairs, and I'd play those things for hours. And I've still got probably 1,000 45s that I've learned off of.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And as well as probably 1,000 33s. You know, but that's where I started. And
what were you listening to on those 45s, and what kind of music were you listening to?
Well, it's everything. I mean, I've got the Tempests, I've got the Doors, I've got the Beatles, I mean, you know.
So you were learning to play drums from them?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's
cool. I'd pick up I'd hear the sound and recreate it, you know. I did that for about 3 years, and we moved from Charlotte, North Carolina, to Marion, North Carolina. And I've been drawing pictures ever since I was 4. used to be a program on TV called John Nagy Learned to Draw.
Uh-huh.
And he taught me.
I was wondering how you learned to do that.
And so we moved to Berrien. They said, I was a sophomore in high school. And they said, well, what do you want to take for an elective? I said, I want to take art. Well, we don't have art. I said, but that's what I do. But we don't have it. I said, well, what are my choices? You've got band and you've got gym. I said, I'm not going back to gym. I said, I play drums. I said, but I don't read music. They said, we'll teach you.
Yeah.
And honestly, man, when I moved to Marion, now you've got to consider Marion, North Carolina in 1967. It was like going back in time to 1957.
Oh, I'm sure it was.
And but in that little small town, there were 3 9-piece blue-eyed soul bands in that town.
Really?
And they all came out of that high school band.
Wow.
And our third chairs would have been first chairs in Charlotte.
Wow, that's great.
And we go to Bristol. We went to Bristol like 11 years and got superiors on marching band and symphonic band. I don't know if you've ever heard the song Black Horse Troop, but it's a John Philip Sousa song. And that was what we came out onto the field with.
Wow.
And I mean, that's a symphonic march.
Yeah, that is.
And that's what we came out on the field with. But we played in the band. I got in a band there probably about 3 or 4 weeks after I got to Marion. And
As a drummer.
as a drummer. And the band was called Continental Express. And we had maybe 2 changes through high school because people graduated. And we were awesome. I mean, it was one of the best technical bands I have ever played with, and that was in high school. We had over 400 songs in our repertoire.
Wow.
We would go into a practice and learn 3 songs. If it was not, and they were 9-piece instrument songs.
Wow.
And if we didn't come out with at least 2 or 3 songs under our belt, it wasn't a good practice.
Now, what kind of music was this?
This was blue-eyed soul.
Okay, good.
It was soul music played by white boys.
Yep, I understand.
But we were good, man. There's no recordings of it, no documentation of it whatsoever, except one photograph on a Polaroid.
Oh, man. That's a
We
shame.
were goofy looking,
That's a
but
shame.
we had the tuxes and all that mess. Did the steps and
Did the whole shebang.
whole shebang, man. It was good. I mean, we were a darn good band. But high school was over and everybody went their separate ways. Honestly, I haven't talked but a couple of them since out of high school. I don't even know how many of us are still alive from that. But
So what was the next step after that?
I moved from Marion to Newton, and I got in a band there with a guy I still play with from time to time, Eddie Rose. He's awesome. He's kind of like you. He plays every bloody thing. I can't stand him. I love him to death, but I can't stand him.
Yeah, I know how that is.
But we put a band together. I went to CVCC, Topper Valley Community College, and we met there, met Chess Club, and he just asked me, we got to talking. We learned that we each played instruments, and so I started playing drums. We put a band together, and we're a darn good band too. Eddie, this was right during the Allman Brothers.
Okay,
like
so we're doing
1970s,
Southern
early
rock now,
1970s.
basically.
And so when we put the band together, we played strictly covers.
Right.
Everything was covered. But then I heard Allman Brothers. I went to Love Valley and heard the Allman Brothers.
Oh, yeah.
And I came back. I said, "Man, you got to hear this." And I gave him a record. I bought a. Again, we go back to the vinyl.
Right.
I bought a 33 album of the Allman Brothers Band. I gave it to him.
Fillmore East.
No, this was before.
Oh, okay.
This was the Allman Brothers Band.
Okay, got you.
And Fillmore East is another story. So I let him borrow the album. Came back in a week and he knew it.
Oh, man.
Knew it.
Oh, man.
Well, then when Out of the Wild South came out,
Yeah.
let him borrow that. So everything we played was pretty much Allman Brothers except for some Canned Heat, Deep Purple. Still can't stand to play a couple of those songs.
Yeah, I understand.
But then the Fillmore came out. And I said, "Man, we need to alter some of these songs to where we can jam them."
Right.
Came back a week later, he knew Whipping Post, note for note. He knew Hot Atlanta, note for note.
Wow.
He knew In the Memory of Elizabeth Reed, note for note.
I'm impressed.
I've always been impressed. That's why I hate him so much.
Yeah, I can see. I'm hating him now.
But, the boy's a genius. And the thing is, now he's got arthritis, rheumatoid arthritis in his
That's a
fingers
shame.
so bad he literally puts the guitar on. And then just smoke starts coming off the neck, which, I don't have rheumatoid arthritis and I can't do that.
Yeah, I'm hating him. Yeah, I'm hating him.
But anyway, that band went defunct after about 2 years. And after that, I went back to school and started artwork. Just started to do artwork. Went to Central Piedmont Community College. And at that time, I was going to take commercial graphics, which was, just basically drawing. And but at that time, TV graphics was the thing. They said this is going to be an upcoming venue that you can get in and actually make some money at. I said, well, that's cool. Because back then, when you saw the screen shots and stuff like that, all they did was project a slide onto a screen and took a picture of it. That was technology back then. And we were going to go one step above that. Well, stayed in that program for about a year. And we came in one morning and we were informed that the teacher had died. And it was going to be 2 more years before they could find anybody that was up to speed to take his place.
So we're looking at a career change.
Yeah. So I had met, you and I both know Marvin Jones.
Yes.
And so I'd met Marvin, we'd partied some. Well, we wasn't, this was before we was here.
Right.
This was when he was at PPG. And so we'd partied, and we were both interested in sports cars. And I said, man, I got to do something. I said, because I can't wait 2 years to get tied in on this again. So we started working on sports cars. We started a company called a sports car shop called the Esses, ESSES, which is a chain of road turns on the racetrack, not NASCAR.
Right, I understand. Yeah. But I'm glad you clarified that for the
Some
listeners.
people might have to.
This is true.
But anyway, I did the logo for it. And we worked on cars together for 14 years.
Wow.
And the technology just outran me. And once again, I was in for a career change. And I went back to school. Well, I went to Toyota next. And just working in the parts department. And the guys there, at that time, Marvin and I had put together a race car, and I got to race it as an MG midget, mainly because Marvin couldn't fit in it.
Yeah.
But I got to race it. And so they knew I was kind of crazy. I knew I'd jumped out of an airplane or two.
Right.
And knew I'd played on stage, so they knew I was a ham. And so one day I was walking down the hallway, and they came up to me and said, "We need to talk to you." I said, "Oh man, what have I done?" They said, "We bought a balloon." I said, "What, like you fly in?" They said, "Yeah, big red balloon." I said, "Man, can I have a ride?" He said, "No, we need a pilot." I said, "Man, I don't know nothing about a pilot in a balloon." He said, "We don't know anything about owning one either." And so they called me into the office. Bill Norwood, I don't know if you remember Mr. Bill from Channel 13.
Yes.
Bill Norwood was in there. We shook hands. I was impressed because Mr. Bill had been one of my idols ever since I was a kid, you know. And so they got to talking. They'd already signed the papers, so there wasn't no backing out. I don't think there's a 3-day waiting period for satisfaction on hot air balloons. But anyway, they'd already signed the papers. And Bill asked me, he said, "Well, what are you going to use for a chase vehicle?" And they said, "A what?" And I said, "Oh, heck, here goes this job." He said, "Well, it don't come back." And they said, "It doesn't." And till my dying day, I swear what they were going to do. Now this is just me. This is just me. What they were planning on doing with that hot air balloon was delivering parts in it.
Oh no!
I swear, man. Well,
Oh,
I
no.
mean, they listen to the questions. What are you going to use for a chase vehicle? A what?
Oh, that's
Well, it
that's
doesn't
hilarious.
come back. It doesn't. Well, not usually, no. So how do you got it? You don't. Okay, so, you know, I swear to my dying day they were going to deliver parts in it. But anyway, that gig lasted for about 2 years. And then they sold the Toyota place again. I'd already gone through 8 owners
Oh, Lord.
at Toyota by that time.
Wow.
I mean, I don't remember if you remember the one where they had all the car carriers lined up Highway 74.
Oh, yeah.
I was there during that.
Oh,
That was
man.
that was kind of like the last days of Vietnam.
Yeah, I bet it was.
But anyway, after that, I had started writing by then, and I had met my wife via the hot air ballooning.
The hot air ballooning?
Huh?
The hot air ballooning?
That's how we met.
Really?
My instructor we would go to Pancake House.
So wait. So you wound up flying this thing?
Yes, I ended up flying. Oh, I failed to mention that.
Yes.
But the instructor decided he wanted to take breakfast at, whether we did an early morning flight, we would come in and then take ground school at Pancake House. Or if we were going to do an evening flight, we would go in and take lunch at the Pancake House and prepare. And I met my wife Lori there.
Okay.
And so by that time I was already writing music. I started writing it probably, the first song I guess I ever wrote and kept was probably 1974.
Now, at this point, were you playing guitar or were you doing
By
this?
that time, yes, because I had no band and it's kind of hard to make music on drums.
Yeah, it is.
you
By
know.
yourself,
And
particularly.
I was tired of the 45s.
Yeah.
And it was weird that once you actually play with somebody, it's hard to go back to a 45 and play over a drum lick.
I'm
For me,
sure
it
for
was
drums it would be.
And so I had quit playing drums probably about 1973. And I just lost the separation of appendages. When you play drums, your right hand can't know what your left hand's doing, or your left foot know what your right one's doing.
I understand.
And I mean, I can still keep a beat, but I can't anticipate. You know, I mean, I had gotten to the point where I could do a two-stroke roll with one hand
Oh yeah, that's good.
and play with the other.
Right.
And I just lost it, you know. And so by that time, I'd already picked up guitar and had started writing. And I think '73, probably Esther was the first one that I ever kept and actually have kept current enough to play.
You still do it?
Yeah, sort of. I mean, you know, I've got to listen to it a couple of times to
Remember it?
to remember it all. But anyway, you know, at that point, I had, like I say, we've been working on cars, and one day I pulled the light switch out of a Spitfire, Triumph Spitfire, and might have been a TR6, but anyway, it was one of those Triumphs.
All right. And
usually you expect to see Lucas on the back, Lord of Darkness, inventor of the intermittent windshield wipers, the reason British drink warm beer, you know,
yeah.
Lucas refrigerators. But I looked on the back of this one for some reason, and it said Clear Hooter.
Ah, I wondered about that.
And I said, man, that is the name of my next band.
I always wondered where that name came from.
They make light switches and horns, hence the name Clear Hooters.
And for all you people who thought that meant something else, you have the truth right now, right here from the man.
But anyway, we shortly after I found that, it's like I started playing with a couple of guys, and Tom Forney was one of them.
Yeah.
And it seemed like they just seemed to move the stuff around as to play it. And to me, anytime you move equipment, you have an opportunity to break it.
True.
And I had a place for everybody to play, and I finally just got tired of moving the stuff. I said, boys, let's just call this one quits. I said, you know. And shortly after that, I met Ronnie Ellis, and I was trying to think who else was in on it to start with. Todd Black, Ronnie Ellis and Todd Black. We ended up starting a trio, and that was the initial Clear Hooter.
Okay.
And then we added Roger Beaver.
Yeah, I know Roger.
And the last generation of it, Ronnie had moved to South Carolina, and we got Steve Johnson, who I found later was an awesome sax player. And we started playing around, and we'd actually got to the point where people were calling us, you know. And one day they just said, "We don't want to do this no more."
Oh yeah, I understand that well.
And so I went back to art, and that's when I started doing the aviation art.
Right. Which is another podcast altogether, which we'll do at some point.
But I ended up meeting some of the best people doing that I have ever met in my life. I mean, because it was the greatest generation.
Mm-hmm.
And they were telling me stories about their trials and tribulations during World War II. And I would draw.
Give them a quick synopsis of what you were drawing at this time.
Basically, they would tell me a story of something that happened to them in an air combat. It was all air combat because I'm just I've just always been into aviation, and the ballooning set that off.
Yeah, hot air pilot.
Because I could actually, for the first time, I could actually go up and I could actually see, you know, what it looked like on my own, at my own speed, my own time, and absorb it, you know. And that's what actually got me started into drawing the airplanes again.
Okay.
But they were World War II aircraft, and they were all the drawings. I've got like 36 of them. They're based on an actual incident as told to me by a particular airman.
That is pretty cool.
And I've got a couple of them, and it just still raised the hair on my arms. In 1999, we got a one of the best things that came out of it was in 1999 we got a pilot of one of the B-17s, a posthumous Distinguished Flying Cross for his actions.
That's wonderful.
On a particular day back in 1944. But anyway, the ballooning's what got me into that, and everything just kind of came together right at that time. I ended up getting married, and you have songs that you write that just come. You have songs you write that take forever, it seems
Right.
like.
Yeah, you do.
And some of them you scrap them.
Right.
But the night I got married, we left the church in the hot air balloon.
Oh man, I didn't know
And
that.
Steve Metcalf took videos of
Yeah,
it.
I know Steve well.
They
All right, I'm back here with Hayne Coleman, and we're talking about music, and we're off on the flying part of music.
Well, anyway, it was what I was saying was, sometimes songs just drop out of the air, and then sometimes
Literally, in your instance, I guess.
and sometimes, you throw them away. But I got married, and we left the church in a hot air balloon. And when I came home that night, you know Barry Honeycutt?
I know who he is. Yeah.
Okay, well, Barry had brought a bottle of tequila with the chase vehicle. And by the time I got home, he probably ruined my wife still blames him for that. Ruined my honeymoon night. But I did come into the house. Now this was December 9th, and it was pretty cool. And I came into the house and went into the front room, turned on the lights, and there's no heat in the front room. And just a fireplace at that time.
Right.
And I could see my breath. And click, And the line came, she entered the room from a cold winter's night, and her breath reflected the light. Her silhouette reached for the lock and the key, and as she turned, she said, "Kindle a fire."
That's it.
And within 30 minutes, high flying was down.
A gift. A wedding gift.
Oh, yeah, well, that's probably one of the reasons she stayed with me, because at least I wrote her a song.
Yeah, that works a lot, I've made a lot of amends with songs.
It's weird what makes them come about.
It is.
Songs. I see stuff going down the road. I've got one song. There's a picture of the statue up on Reverb Nation of Hayne Coleman. Plug.
Yeah, we're going to get to Hayne Coleman in just a little bit.
They've took it down one time.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but I put it back up, put graphics on it that says sometimes songs just write themselves.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've traveled down Highway number 5.
Yeah.
Often.
Too much, probably.
If you remember back about 4 or 5 years ago, there was a statue of a naked lady standing there.
There was.
Yes, there
I
was.
forgot all about that.
Yes, sir. No, I did. And I had to go by that every morning. I was sandblasting up in Granite Falls doing tombstones, which is a whole nother story. But you just can't pass that every day and come back by it every night without Hank writing something. You know, Hank is the alter ego.
Yeah, let's go into Hank.
Talk about Hank.
Yeah, let's talk about Hank. All right, now, just give me the whole Hank Cole deal.
My name is Hayne Coleman, and Hayne has been a pain most of my life. When I went to Central Piedmont, they lost my records because they put them under Wayne. I had to go back and take my exam again. Made 100 points higher, and then they found it.
Oh, of course.
You've always got to spell it.
Yes.
Hayne, not Hane, not Hanes, not Haynes. So, anyway, Glenn Drake called me up one day. I'd write these songs, and I'd go over to a buddy of mine, Glenn Drake's house, and I'd bounce them off of him.
Yeah.
You know, we'd drink a beer or 12, and
yeah.
I'd bounce them off of him. And he said he'd started playing bass, and you know, pretty much basically just started. But he was a, you know, bump.
Yeah, that works. That works. You know, 90% of the stuff.
And that's usually most of the lick.
Yeah, it is.
Sorry, Mike, I didn't mean that.
Well, I understand.
But
being a bass player, totally, I understand.
But anyway, Glenn said we need to start a band. I said, "Are you a fool?" He said, "No." He said, "You got all these songs, nobody hears them. What good are they?" I said, "But do you understand how big a pain in the butt a band is?" "Yeah, but it's okay."
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I said, "Okay." I said, "What do you want to call it?" "Well, we'll call it the Hayne Coleman Band." I said, "The hell we will." I said, "I wouldn't name my child Hayne." I said, and then it just, again, light bulb. What about Hank Cole? I said, everybody calls me Hank anyway. And Cole, I said, put them together. I said, that's kind of catchy.
Yeah, it's really.
And then all of a sudden another light bulb flashed. I said, I know the son of a bitch. He said, do what? I said, think about it. That block print I've got on my wall. I said, that's him. He's been hanging around in my head since 1972. And that's when I did that block print. And so Hank actually kind of took a form, you know. I mean, there's not many people got an alter ego that actually has form.
Yeah, unfortunately, I do understand that one.
You can actually look at the guy, you know. But, and I don't remember how the K came out. I think it was an accident with the way it was written with it all together. But I like the way that was written too. But I've got somebody to now blame for the mistakes, you know, and writing the song so many times. That's something you and I were talking about. People don't really understand, I think. People think just, I guess, you know, a lot of people who don't write think songs just come out. They don't.
No, they don't.
If they do, it's a rarity.
Sometimes.
I've got maybe, out of the 100 songs that I've got, maybe less than 5 took an hour to write.
Sure.
And the rest of them are just absolute labors.
Yeah, I understand. It's a craft, really.
Yeah, I mean, and that's why it's called wordsmithing.
It is.
You know, but I don't know. I mean, you know, there's people don't really understand what a musician has to go through to actually stand up on stage and play.
And you know, when you write songs, you also have a limited space to put that song in. You take up too much of that space and nobody's interested.
Yeah, I've got a couple of them that are too long.
Yeah, we all do.
I mean, but these are the ones that are like telling a story.
Right.
And you've got to put so much in there to tell that
story.
You know.
Yeah.
Basically, I mean, like I said, 3 minutes is a good.
Pretty much the standard.
Standard, yeah. I mean, that's about the most you're going to keep somebody's attention.
It is.
Unless you got something else to keep their attention. But people don't realize that, though. I mean,
and as with your story of the naked lady, sometimes you have to live life to continue writing. I mean, part of writing is okay. I wrote for a little bit, but I got to go live some more to get.
That's true.
The way it happens.
That's very true. I see things on the roadside, good and bad. The naked lady.
Yeah.
She's not there anymore.
No, I know she's not.
His ex-wife made it take her down.
Really?
Yes. But
his ex-wife. Yeah, that's a good part of the story. Yeah.
At least that's what he said. Anyway. But there was a buddy of mine come by one day and said, "Man, you see that dead crow on the wire over there on 18 South?" I said, "No. Go take a look at that. It's a big old crow hanging upside down on that wire down there." And sure enough, right after you cross the state line, there's a big old dead crow hanging that had grabbed on evidently to a live wire.
Yeah, kept him
and just cooked him. And he stayed up there for like months. And again, ride by it, day in, day out. And all of a sudden, something clicked, So I call it the Dead Crow song, but and that is a subtitle of the highway songs.
Gotcha. Right.
As you see things going down the road, that's the genre, the big genre, and then you've got the subgenres of whatever they are.
Naked ladies and dead crows.
Naked ladies, and stuff like that.
That's too cool.
But stuff like that just is an inspiration.
Do you co-write?
I have some. Eddie and I have done some stuff. He, as good a guitar player as he is, and musician as he is, he says the only thing he can come out with when he tries to write is "Oh Baby Baby," and so
he's
click. There's the light bulb again. I wrote a song called "Oh Baby Baby," and it's pretty much a repetitious song.
Oh yeah, well that's kind of the
it's
idea
kind of a bluesy kind of thing, But he and I have written a couple. I take inspiration from suggestions people have.
Yeah.
We had the first album or first CD we put together. We put together in a living room, and pretty much all of it was done live one take. In fact, both of these CDs are all live one take kind of things. But Dusty Mode, he was a drummer we had at one time. I was sandblasting for a monument company at the time, and doing etchings on rocks and stuff like that. And I still do those. I don't do the sandblasting anymore. It's just too detrimental to my hearing. I can't hardly hear now. But I started doing etchings back in 1998, I believe it was. May have been a little earlier than that. But I started doing those, and Dusty came in one day and he said, "You need to write a song called Etched in Stone." By golly, yeah.
Yeah.
And so that ended up being the name of the first CD. And I love the lines in it, and we don't do it a whole lot anymore, but I love the lyrics in it, and it's a pretty darn good song. But things like that, I mean, you just hear things in passing, and it's like, and this is one reason I think we have such a hard time with guitar players, is because I'm all over the board as far as
a lot of styles.
what I write.
Mm-hmm. A blessing and a curse.
Joe got me a daggum banjo it's not banjo, I'm sorry. It's a gitjo or a guitar. I call it a gitjo. It's a 6-string banjo.
Yeah, right.
And I know banjo players don't consider that to be a real instrument.
We live in Cleveland County.
And I can play it, and I don't have to offer anything
Right.
that I do.
I understand. Yeah.
And therefore, I'm not getting my banjo chords mixed up with my guitar chords.
Yeah,
which
I do
know
understand
that I
that.
would do.
Yeah.
But I've got a couple songs now, or several songs now that've got gitjo in it.
Right.
That's bordering on bluegrass anyway you
Yes,
cut it. Got rock and roll, got jazz, got country. Do not rap, do not thrash.
That's a song right there, you know. She just wrote you another song.
Just wrote another one. You ever co-write, Rick? You ever co-write?
Yeah, I do. Every once in a while.
But
somebody gives me a free line.
But I understand. You've got to have kind of a skewed personality to cope with all those different genres of music.
Yeah, it's hard. Yeah.
But I've been fortunate enough to play with several really good guitar players. And like I say, Hayne Coleman's kind of like the Marines. Once you play in Hayne Coleman band, you always a Hayne Coleman member for life. We had a party down at Capri several years ago. Oh man! And we put everybody that had played with Hayne Coleman band on the stage at one point. I picked the best songs that they played.
Right.
And that was what they played.
That sounds fun.
And it was pretty freaking awesome. But as many as people have gone through this group, I've had Justin Harper plays with us sometimes. Like I say, Dusty Modes played with us. Eddie Rose, Tommy Tessinier, Glenn Drake. Now Mike Clapperud, Joe Hinesley playing. We're going to do a gig up here Wednesday night, the 10th of this month, 10th of July, and it's going to be just a trio of us.
Okay.
Eddie's got a doctor's appointment for the arthritis, and I try not to infringe on stuff like that because, I want him healthy. But at any rate, there's been a lot of people come through this thing, and this group, and I'm just amazed at what they've done with the music and so forth.
This is what you're going to do musically from this point forth, right?
Something like that, yeah. I don't anticipate ever becoming famous or ever, I would like to sell some songs.
Yeah.
That's basically what it is. Somebody asked me the other day, said, well, what if somebody bought the song and then just decided to change the whole thing? That's fine with me.
I agree totally.
I'm still going to play it the way I wrote it.
Right.
I'm not going to pay you to play my song. That's not going to, that'll be in the contract if it ever happens. But, when somebody gets a hold of it's like with my art. I have very few original thoughts when it comes to art. When I do a monument, I'll ask the people, well, what do you want to see? And I'm just the extension of that.
Of what they want to see.
What they're wanting to see.
Gotcha.
So that's the same way it is with writing the music, in the sense that, I don't have too many original ideas. They just come up from things that you see on the streets. And people suggesting stuff, things
Songs
like that.
in real life.
I was in here one night, and the lady had a T-shirt on that said "Run All Night." I said, "Wow." I said, you come, we play over here the next time. I said, I'll have me a song. I call it a Texas swing song, which is one of the few that I've got like that. My wife said, that sounds like Bob Dylan. And Joe said, hey, that sounds like Bob Dylan. Now, you got to...
That's a big difference, Texas swing and Bob Dylan.
The intonation is all it's all in the intonation.
It is, yeah, it is.
But, so anyway, I mean, you know, it's one of those things that I plan on doing it as long as I can. My hearing is going bad, and that scares me the most, is the fact that I may not at one time be able to hear anymore.
That is one of my fears. And, you know, I think in our generation, that's a big fear with a lot of musicians. Hearing protection was not a thing when we were coming up. They have it today in every industry, even bands. I play with bands and they got their earphones in, but that's not something, and I'm sure there's many people our age worry about hearing, particularly musicians. It's that shuts your whole world out.
Yeah, I mean, it's like with me right now, I can't hear ambient noise well, so I have a hard time harmonizing anymore vocally. Now, if I can hear myself great, and if I can hear myself, then I can stay in tune. And then it's up to you or the person beside me to do their part right.
I can sing harmony the same way as long as I can hear it.
Yeah.
As long as I can hear the other person.
See, now
I drift though if I don't.
I won't do that right yet. Right yet, anyway. It's not happened yet. But I'm anticipating it one of these days. At that point, I may end up having to quit. So, until then.
Yeah. I tell you what, Hayne, you've been one of the most interesting people I've had on this show. And we might even get you back to talk about some other stuff.
I hope the bar was set high.
It was set pretty high. However, songwriter, storyteller, par excellence.
I appreciate that.
Thank you for doing this.
Thank you for asking me to. I appreciate Jamie letting us.
Yes. Another plug to Dragonfly Wine Market here in Shelby, North Carolina. He actually has live music, live local music. It's a great venue. Come out.
One of the best listening rooms too.
It's a great listening room. In fact, when are you here?
The 10th.
He'll be
this month.
Okay,
July.
He'll be here July 10th. So
that's a Wednesday.
Come out, give it a listen. All right, I enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. There's an extra song on here, and I'll let Hank Cole tell the story himself. Thank you for listening.
All right, this is about the house I live in. My granddaddy raised a Cherokee hen down in Blacksburg, South Carolina, and took those components and built the house with it.
Oh, that's cool.
And so this is about that.
Okay.
It's called Cherokee Hen, and it really should be a banjo song, and it is when we play it out, but we're not doing that today.
We understand.
All right, let's see if I can do this. My home was where Grandpa's used a tin shingle roof. Took it from the Cherokee and built 1882. Now he raised it, saved the salvage, built a home for his family there. A grandson he never knew, but he knew he was coming. Well, I never got to ask him, he never got to say just as to what happened, why the Cherokee was raised. These tin shelter travelers, they've seen some things go on, protected from the weather. They heard some weddings song, but there were parties every Christmas, New Year's come and gone. Birthdays, old flames, the sound of the trains, well, I just the river along. Well, I never got to ask him, he never got to say just as to what happened, why the Cherokee was raised. These windows seen the sunrise, they've seen every day, seen every sunset since the day that they were made. Well, now if they just had a memory, I wonder what they'd say. I've wondered since, I've wondered why the Cherokee was raised. Well, I never got to ask, he never got to say just as to what happened, why the Cherokee was raised. Some doors are slammed in anger, some are open to the spring, some seal against the winter sun, keep them skeletons in. Now they're all different sizes, but each one's made to stand. They all led to a walkway for the Cherokee was raised. Well, I never got to ask him, he never got to say just as to what happened, why the Cherokee was raised. This porch bench seen some courting, if not really in my day. It might have been the very place Grandma's heart was swayed. He might have made his proposal on this very place, but that was long before my time. The Cherokee was raised. Well, I never got to ask him, he never got to say just as to what happened, why the Cherokee was raised. Well, I never got to ask him, he never got to say just as to what happened, why the Cherokee was raised. Well, I never did find out why the Cherokee was raised.
That's a really visual song.
Yeah.
Today on Big Sound Small Town, my guest is what some would argue to be the founding father of Americana music, at least in Cleveland County, Mr. Darrell Atherson.
Thanks.
Welcome to the show.
Well, I appreciate it. I love talking about music, and
Talk about some music. Where did the love for music start with you?
it's as far back as I can remember. I can remember I was doing a pretty good Elvis impression at age 6,
Oh yeah, that's good.
and then as I grew up, I of course had the radio on all the time, and I was a real big Ricky Nelson fan. As was Elvis. Elvis thought that Ricky Nelson had the look and the voice that everybody should have, and then later on, I started listening to late night radio, WLS in Chicago.
Oh yeah.
I could get them.
That was one of the ones I could get off.
I could get them on a little transistor radio, hidden beneath the covers so my mother wouldn't know that I was staying up so late. And that's where I first heard the Beatles, I believe, about 1963 or sometime. And so I just had a love of music. And coming on up through high school, of course, there was the Monkees TV show, and there was Hullabaloo, and there was Shindig. Before that, there was Hootenanny. I had a love of folk music too, so it was. I didn't discriminate.
I kind of came along with some of the Arthur Smith for breakfast crowd.
Oh yeah. Arthur Smith and Fred Kirby were daily watching fare, and I had to watch Arthur Smith before I went to school every morning.
So at what point did you decide you were going to play music as opposed to just listening?
Well, it was on in high school. Well, maybe about 8th or 9th grade. I decided I was going to be a drummer, and I got a set of drums and tried to start little bands and failed. And I never had really played guitar. I didn't know. I had an old acoustic guitar, but I couldn't play it because it was so bad. And Bud McSwain invited me over to his house, and he had a red Fender Mustang, I believe, and a Sears Silvertone amp. And he showed me Big Boss Man by Jimmy Reed on there, and I didn't know what Jimmy Reed was. And he told me, he said, this is real rhythm and blues. And and it was.
Yeah.
It was something real that I'd never heard before. And so I got interested in all kinds of blues and rhythm and blues and country and bluegrass, and because every Saturday night we listened to Flatt and Scruggs on TV. Both my parents and my wife's parents would have that on regardless. And of course, Grand Ole Opry and various other shows, which left me thinking that there was no difference in music. I mean, if you were playing country or you're playing rock and roll or rockabilly or rhythm and blues or whatever you're playing music. So that was fine with me. But it was the real turning point was that with Bud McSwain, which showed me that you could have an electric guitar and you could play some pretty outstanding stuff. So I got me a $30. I bought it from Ronnie Ash, who sat behind me in the 10th grade. It was an amp in case.
Oh, okay.
The Silvertone amp in case, single pickup.
Yes.
Terrible guitar, although now they sell for like $500-600 a piece. And I ended up selling it for $30. I wish I hadn't.
I must admit I own one.
Yeah, I'd love to have one now, but I don't want to pay what they want for
I
it.
didn't pay for what they wanted for it either. Were you still in high school at this time?
Now, still in high school and still trying to start a band. Desperately trying to start something, and Steve McCraw, who lives down the road here, I got him to play my drum kit,
Okay.
and I played guitar, and I borrowed a bass for my brother. He could play most anything, but he just didn't have an interest in it really. Not like I did, like wanting to be cutting edge, I guess.
So what were you doing when you guys were putting this together?
I remember our favorite song was Hang On Sloopy by the McCoys, which we thought was just really, really cool. But Doug Benson was in my high school class, and he played lead guitar for me. But
Doug Benson, by the way, is the loudest guitar player I've ever played with in my life. Just throwing that in. Rest in peace.
I've played with a couple louder ones since then. But the music bug never left me, and Bud went off to the Air Force, so he was my mentor And so I lost contact with him about 1967, and I went I went to Gardner Webb a year, and I didn't find anybody over there that knew music like I knew music, and went to Appalachia, and I still didn't connect with anybody up there, although summer of '68 I met one of my best friends, Scott DeBrule, and another friend they both went to Chase High School, Sherman Tate, who now he lives in the Raleigh area and he plays all the time. It's Shaking Sherman and the Sheetrockers, or Shaking Sherman and the DTs, or something like that. But I met these two guys at a summer job in '68, and I realized that they like music the way I like music, that they knew that music meant something beyond just a clever tune and 12 notes. So I hooked up with them in '68, and we've been friends ever since, although I had a little folky act, which I tried to do in college, which had a harmonica holder and a guitar and a strong Bob Dylan influence. But and as a matter of fact, I played a double bill one night with Alicia Bridges when she was a folkie.
That's a good one. That's really good. So she was a folk singer at one point.
So I usually met Alicia Bridges at some Methodist youth social thing.
That's funny.
in the fellowship hall of some Methodist church. But later on, she became Queen of Disco.
She did.
And I'm sure she doesn't remember anything we did. But it never did develop into much, although I was constantly in contact with these other guys from Chase. I mean, it turned out there was a pack of them, about 8 or 10 of them, who loved music and loved to go to concerts. And back then, the biggest thing I ever went to was Jubilee in Chapel Hill. I had a chance to go to that twice, and I thought, well, that's just wonderful.
That was wonderful, actually.
We got to see, I saw Paul Butterfield Blues Band, I saw the Johnson Brothers, I saw the Mad Dog and the Englishman tour with Leon Russell and Joe Cocker. So I was just in heaven hanging out with these guys from Rutherford County, and still hang out with them. But I'll have to get to that later. Then Bud moved back to Cleveland County, and after being in the Air Force for 4 years, and we hooked up together, and we started playing, 2 or 3 times a week, just messing around. I mean, we were just entertaining ourselves, because this was like the early '70s, and we had not made a lot of money, so that was our entertainment, was we played songs for each other. And then later on, Bud went to work at the Volkswagen place, and they started having a picking every Friday night at the Volkswagen place after it shut down. So that started getting more and more popular, and then we met Mitchell Self, and he joined in with us, and we were enjoying ourselves, just not with no ambition.
Right.
And one day we went to see this band called Smoking Grass.
Yeah.
With we knew Richard Waldrop, who was in it, and there was Art Brooks and Dale Britton and a couple other guys. Anyway, they were doing Newgrass Revival. I mean, they were like letter-perfect Newgrass Revival covers. Of course, the Newgrass Revival were covering things like the Beatles and Bob Marley, and so Mitchell and Bud and I decided that we could do that too, only we would do something a little bit different, because we'd been listening to all kind of other music.
Other than bluegrass.
Yeah, all kinds of country and rock and roll, but we liked the bluegrass format, the new grass revival format, and so we got together, and first we had Ronnie Love, who's one of those Rutherford County guys, to play banjo for us, and I got my buddy Steve McCraw that lives down the road here to play bass. He didn't even own a bass, but we finally, he got a bass and we got a bass amp, and so we had a complete ensemble there. Mitchell played mandolin and Bud played guitar, and we thought, yeah, this is going to work. And then Ronnie had to quit, and so we got our eyes on David Martin. David Martin was playing with Brushy Creek, and they were playing traditional bluegrass. And we kept telling David, traditional bluegrass is great, but there's something else you need to do. And we knew David, he could play fiddle, he could play dobro, he could play mandolin, guitar, he could play anything he picked up. And so we finally talked him into joining us, and that was the Let's Honk that started out. And we got the name because
I was going to ask you where
the name came from was when we were at some of those late night pickings, either at the Volkswagen place or at our houses or wherever we were picking. After about midnight, we'd say, "Okay, let's honk," and so honking became the guys I play with now, they still say, "Let's do some honking."
Yeah, Well, I mean, that was the saying around here for a pretty good while.
Let's honk.
Yeah.
And we went on like that for a while. Later on, we added Randy Saxon on electric guitar. He could play a Telecaster like nobody's business. And David Roof, who had been a veteran of various bands around here, he joined us on drums. And then I sort of had my vision complete, because when I started out, my vision was not being like Newgrass Revival, but being like the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band.
Ah, yeah, okay.
Because the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band, they would play rock and roll, and then they would play bluegrass, and then they'd play hardcore country, and then they would mix it all together and play folk music or whatever came to mind. And I thought, well, that's what you ought to do. That is what you should do. You should play anything that comes to mind. And so I guess that's why we're considered ahead of our time, because that's what Americana is today.
You were one of the first bluegrass format bands I saw with the Telecaster and with drums. So
yeah, it seemed to me to be the thing to do.
I'll say your set list. Well, just give me a rundown of what maybe one of your set lists would include.
Well, we did do some originals. Mitchell was a good writer, but our set list might start off with "The End Is Not in Sight" by the Amazing Rhythm Aces, and then we'd switch to "Long Black Veil," which is a traditional country song, but we played a version which was like 4 times faster than the original so that people could dance. And we played "July You're a Woman," which was a song by John Stewart. We'd cover the Eagles, we'd cover hardcore country like "She Thinks I Still Care," which is George Jones' tune. Then we would play we didn't mind playing a traditional bluegrass or two, but we would jam it up. And then we got started getting bookings. Just small parties at first, and then we started playing bars. We played Buffy's up in Tryon, which we really liked playing up there. And we played a bar in Spartanburg called Mickey's. We played the Coal Yard in York. Playing that gig got us a gig at the beach playing in a biker bar, which was that was kind of risky. But we played the Old Prospector in Charlotte. We had this set of bars that were kind of in the area. Of course, we played stuff in Shelby too, as well.
You had a pretty good following in this town.
Yeah.
Almost a cult, John Prine-ish, Grateful Dead-ish type of following.
Yeah, I know. We would be in some foreign city like Spartanburg and see all the same people show up down there. You know, it was kind of shocking, really. I didn't realize this was going to happen, but I enjoyed it a lot. Don't get me wrong. But I guess the best thing that happened to us was we got hooked up with Steve Metcalf and Green Acres.
Oh, yes, I do know about Green Acres.
Oh, Green Acres was the place to be.
It was. It was the place to be.
We saw a lot of good shows up there and participated in a lot of good shows. And we were kind of like the cancellation sure thing. If somebody from Nashville or wherever couldn't show up like they were supposed to, Let's Honk could jump up there, and the show went on. I guess our biggest thrill at Green Acres was we got to open for Newgrass Revival one time, and actually did the sound for them, and then went to the after party with them. So, we really thought we were in high cotton at that time.
I'm sure you did.
And so I'm forever grateful to Steve Metcalf for having faith in us, and things went on like that for a while, and then I had two little girls that I felt like I needed to spend more time with, and of course we all had full-time jobs, and we were staying out till 2 a.m. and then getting up and going to a job the next day. So it got to be too much to do on a regular basis. I mean, so I just had to slow it down, and we did a few more gigs, reunion gigs, and all like that, and stayed friends and enjoyed music for several years, and then of course Bud passed away, and David has had some health problems, and Randy went on to play with David Childers. so
and I think David Roos in Florida.
Yeah, David Roos in Florida. Steve McCraw moved to Spartanburg, and he's got a recording studio down there, Apple Tree Music, which he enjoys doing, and he plays with a band occasionally called Motherload. He's still a great bass player.
And what have you done since then?
Well, Mitchell and I, we went over to the Dragonfly one night, and there were some guys playing over there, and we thought, well, shoot, we can play over here. I had a sound system, and we had all our instruments and mics and stuff left over, and I said, well, why don't we go over to the Dragonfly and do a duo? And so we did that for a while, playing some of the similar stuff. And then Mitchell, he moved to Atlanta so he could be close to his grandkids, and didn't blame him for that. And so I floundered around a little bit, but I was still friends with these guys in Rutherford County who occasionally, they weren't all still in Rutherford County. They were in various places. but I was still friends with them, and I met one, Michael Sperling. I met him in college, 1968, and we were still friends. So he said, "Come on up. We play in the basement every now and then." And Ronnie Love, our old banjo player, he was part of it, and then several other people that I knew who had been in various bands, various times. We just started playing in the basement for fun, and then they said, "Well, we can get a gig over at Barley's Tap Room."
Yeah.
So that's what I've been doing.
That's what you're doing now.
Is occasionally, maybe every 2 months or so, we go over to Barley's Tap Room, and we're the cancellation band for them too. If they can't get a band together.
Well, it's great that you're still doing this after all these years. I mean, some people play for a little while and just disappear.
I like it so much because, well, for one thing, I think that music that we played shouldn't get lost, you know. And I probably enjoy it more now than ever before because there's no pressure. I can just play what I want to play, and
That's good. That's real good. Did your didn't your daughters sing some too? Did you do some stuff with them?
yeah, my daughters are real good singers. I mean, they do that sister harmony, and my granddaughter, she's probably the best singer of all. She just turned 25. So I'm an old guy.